On this episode of Searching for History, we're out on Whidbey Island and we're looking for blockhouses. So right now we're standing in Coupeville and behind me is the Alexander Blockhouse.
There's 4 historical blockhouses on Whidbey Island, and behind us is one, but there's 3 others. There's the Crockett Blockhouse, the Davis Blockhouse, and the Ebey Blockhouse, as well as the Alexander Blockhouse behind me here.
From 1855 to 1857, Indian unrest in the Puget Sound region spurred early Whidbey settlers to build first 4 blockhouses, followed by 3 more after the tragic murder of Isaac Ebey by the Southeast Alaskan Kake Indians, K-A-K-E. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. The murder of Isaac Ebey in 1857. The Indians shot and beheaded Ebey as retribution for the loss of 27 tribal members during relocation talks on the U.S. Navy steamer Massachusetts the previous year. Ebey's scalp was eventually recovered, but questions remain as to its final location. So today there's 4 blockhouses remaining. We actually have already seen the 1855 Crockett Blockhouse, one of 2 stockaded blockhouses, and it's explaining that it's actually been moved just southwest of its original site. And then the other blockhouse went to a 1909 Yukon-Alaska Pacific Exposition. So as you'll see when we look at the Crockett Blockhouse, the stockade no longer exists. So it did have a wall around it. So that makes sense why it's small, but it would have had more fortification.
We're at the Crockett Blockhouse, and it was built in 1855. And this might be the tiniest blockhouse that we've ever been to.
We haven't been to a lot of blockhouses, but I agree this is a pretty tiny one. 1855 would place it at the beginning of the Puget Sound War.
Nope. No, it's sealed shut.
The Crockett Blockhouse was restored in 1938. As you can see, it's 2-story, and it looks to have 2 rifle loops on each side of the 2nd story, and then there's also rifle loops down here on the 1st story. Has a new foundation. It's been put on a concrete foundation. What do you think? How much of this is original?
I don't think very much of it is.
Yeah, it's hard to know. These bottom logs could be original. I'm suspicious about
Yeah, that's not original.
this one and the one over there. And then the top, probably original. And of course the roof has been replaced at some point. But you can see how the timbers were shaped.
Mm-hmm.
With it's not an axe, I forget what the woodworking tool is called. It's kind of like an axe on its side.
An adze?
An adze, yeah. Yeah, it's been shaped with an adze. You can see that on all of these. It's hard to say. Maybe on, actually maybe on this one too. Oh, there's a hole there. I was hoping there'd be an information panel here to give us a little bit more idea of the history.
Yeah, I'd like to know why it's so tiny.
Let's go see our next blockhouse.
Okay. So far, the Crockett Blockhouse is the cutest one.
Yeah, and comparing it to the only other blockhouse we have any experience with, the Borst Blockhouse in Centralia is quite a bit bigger than this one.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you at the next blockhouse. The 1855 Alexander Blockhouse was once located on the Alexander farm, but now it's located in Coupeville, right next to the Island County Historical Museum.
This is the Alexander Blockhouse. It was built in 1855, and it looks to me to be sort of similar in size to the Borst Blockhouse. Would you say that's the case, Roland?
Yeah, it's similar. Maybe a little smaller.
A little tiny bit smaller.
So this is a 2-story blockhouse. We can go inside, so let's check it out. Okay.
Yeah, this is, it actually has the second story intact. So there's a floor above us, and they've built some stairs here. I think originally blockhouses just had, well, the small ones had ladders that you could pull up.
Whether stairs is original, I don't know. I mean, this definitely is not an original stairs.
No. But I think the feature of a blockhouse is that you could pull up your ladder so people couldn't get in your second story.
So once again, it has rifle loops on the second story, and you can see how the hole's quite small on the outside, but the inside is more cone-shaped, so you can move the rifle from left to right. They have the stairs blocked off, so we can't go to the second floor.
There's a little bit of information on this poster right here.
Yeah, what does this have to say? In 1855, Territorial Governor Isaac Stevens was charged with enacting treaties with indigenous nations throughout Washington Territory. The treaties, which ceded all native lands to the United States government, created strong resentment among tribal members. Stevens encouraged settlers to build fortifications for protection. 9 to 11 blockhouses were constructed on Whidbey Island. While Whidbey Island's 4 remaining blockhouses were never used defensively, they remind us of a contentious and difficult period in our history. Well, let's see if we can walk around the outside. The Alexander Blockhouse, at its original location, was surrounded by a 10-foot-high stockade. The blockhouse was moved from the Alexander farm to where it now stands in the 1930s. Then there's the 1857 Ebey Blockhouse, which is one of the 4 standing at the corner of a stockade enclosing the Jacob Ebey house. And so we're going to go take a look at that. It's not far from here. Jacob Ebey's son Winfield used the blockhouse as his office, the first law office on Whidbey Island. Sunnyside, donation land claim of Jacob Ebey, served in War of 1812, the Black Hawk War, and the Mexican War. When 61 years old, led company across plains with covered wagons, settled on Whidbey Island, and built this home, 4 blockhouses and stockade in 1856, given in honor of Colonel Ebey, his descendants, and early settlers. I really love the setting of the blockhouse and the Ebey house itself, you know, out in this large field with the Olympic mountain range in the background. Makes you wonder you know, how unchanged is this landscape around the Ebey house. Are you back there?
I'm back here.
Well, it's closed, so we're gonna have to look in the windows.
Well, see if you can look in.
Then we'll go ponder the view. Wow. Well, right here behind me is the Ebey house. Unfortunately, our timing for these things seems to be quite bad, and it's closed. So we're gonna do some peeking in through the windows, and hopefully you can see what we see. So let's go do some peeking.
How I can do that. I can't even see through the window.
So this room has a fireplace in it. Can you look through the window?
No, I can't get close enough. No, it's too short.
Let's try over here.
I need a ladder. It's the same problem.
What's happening here? We got another room. There's a little panel in there that talks about the upstairs at the Ebey house. Let's go around and look at the backside.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be tall enough to look at something there. Oh yeah, maybe. The back room. Actually, the inside looks quite a bit better maintained than the outside. You'd think they would put a whitewash on this building.
Maybe that's the plan.
Sorry we couldn't take you inside. However, if you are on Whidbey, come take a look. Hopefully you'll be more lucky than us. Well, let's go take a look at the Blockhouse.
This is the Ebey Blockhouse. It's one of 4 on this site. It was built in 1854. And it says here, Marcus Whitman chapter 1954. So it must have been restored.
Probably was restored
Originally,
in
1954. There's a panel here by the Ebey's Landing National Historical Reserve. In the 1850s, settlers like Jacob and Sarah Ebey worried about conflict with local tribes, but it was fear of northern Indians from Alaska and British Columbia that led them to construct log blockhouses like this one as protection in case of attack. Built in 1856, the Ebey Blockhouse is one of only 4 remaining in the reserve. It was reconstructed with the surviving original material in the 1930s. So some amount of the Ebey Blockhouse is original, but it is a reconstruction.
Well, I think we can spot anything that's original. Let's walk around it and look. I don't know, maybe these logs down here that are quite rotten, although, I don't know, it's getting a lot of sun exposure right here. I think a lot of this is reconstruction.
Yeah.
It has been put on a stone foundation.
Trying to determine what was original from the 1850s. The reconstruction originally took place in the 1930s. That's still old. You know what I mean? So trying to determine what's older than that, it's hard for me.
One thing I'm noticing in these blockhouses here up on Whidbey, unlike the Bourse Blockhouse, so the Bourse Blockhouse appears to have been pre-burned. It's blackened on the outside, which maybe serves 2 functions. One for preservation, but I don't think when they're building these in the 1850s they cared about that. But I think it also gives it some fire resistance. these blockhouses we're seeing show no signs of that. That leads me to conclude one of two things. Either they didn't do that here in the 1850s, or they are extensive restorations where they didn't duplicate that technique.
You can see some of the materials in the blockhouses that we've seen so far appear to be darker, but a lot of it just does not.
Look, there's a window in that part of it, in the second story.
Up high.
The fourth still existing blockhouse is the 1857 Davis Blockhouse, which is right here next to this information panel, and it's standing on its original site right here in the cemetery. It says here that the Davis Blockhouse has undergone quite a bit of restoration, and this restoration took place in 2007, accomplished by the Island County Cemetery District Number 2 with local assistance from the Coupeville Lions Club.
This is the Davis Blockhouse, and it says here this blockhouse was erected in 1855. It was restored in 1930 by the ladies of the Round Table in honor of the pioneer mothers. And then on this side, it says this blockhouse was restored in 2007 by Island County Cemetery District Number 2 and the Coupeville Lions Club.
So it was two-story. I'm assuming there must have been some amount of an upper floor that just doesn't exist anymore.
I think the decision to put windows down low was a 1930s decision.
Yeah, I don't think the original build of this would have had really any windows in it.
No.
Just the rifle loops.
Which you can like maybe see just the tiniest bits of up there.
Yeah.
On this side.
And actually, this is pretty cool to see. You couldn't see this at the Crockett Blockhouse, but as you can see, that rifle loop up there, while the hole is quite small, it has a cone shape going into it, so you have the ability to move your rifle from left to right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a neat feature. So you have a fireplace here, at least the bottom portion of it. So I assume originally there was a chimney that would have gone out the roof. So they're able to maybe do some cooking in here and keep warm. It's definitely a small space.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of space in here.
No, but there didn't need to be a lot of space in here because it wasn't really for living in.
Right, it's for surviving in. And I imagine maybe they slept on the second floor,
yeah.
And then down here was for cooking and eating and those sorts of things.
Yeah. A blockhouse is not a place to live in. I'm a little bit suspicious of the hearth as a feature in a blockhouse. I think that if, you would have had to have a way to eat if you were stuck in a blockhouse. But I think you would have been eating, dry rations or something you could just eat, not cook, really.
They show this as part of the restoration effort. I don't think they would have restored it had it just been something someone made in the 20th century. Mm-hmm. So it probably did have, this hearth probably is genuine.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts about the Davis Blockhouse?
Well, the Davis Blockhouse is a little bit bigger than the Crockett Blockhouse, and it seems more familiar and resembles the Bourse Blockhouse.
Still smaller, though.
Still smaller. I like the decision to put or have the windows on the lower level because it allows light in, so you can see inside the blockhouse quite a bit.
You know, a lot of these blockhouses, they were built for original purpose, but then later were used for other things.
Right.
So actually having the windows in there may have been a later addition.
Yeah. I liked, you could see inside it so much better. You could see the rifle loops a little bit better and see how they were used. And I also really thought it was sweet. The original restoration in the 1930s was done by the ladies of the Round Table. That seems like such a...
Yeah. If you know about the ladies of the Round Table and what that organization was all about, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, any thoughts on the 4 blockhouses of Whidbey Island?
They were all really interesting, and it was cool to be able to go inside at least one of them. But I thought the Crockett Blockhouse was the cutest one.
Yeah.
It was really small, and it was interesting to note that it did have a stockade. It wasn't just that itty-bitty little blockhouse.
The Alexander Blockhouse is cool because you can go inside. However, I wish it was in its original location on the Alexander farm. With that being said, it is handy that it is right next to the Island County Historical Museum in the middle of Coupeville. The Ebey Blockhouse is unique that it is still situated next to the Ebey House. It is interesting to think how the blockhouse is surrounded by a prairie landscape that is relatively unchanged since the Ebeys settled on the prairie. I like the Davis Blockhouse because you can go inside and easily see the second story, the rifle loops, and there is still an intact hearth inside. The setting around the blockhouse is interesting, being right next to a pioneer cemetery.
Well, that's our video on the 4 blockhouses in the Ebey Landing National Historical Reserve. I hope you enjoyed it.
Don't forget to like, share, comment on this video, and please subscribe to Searching for History.
Thanks for watching.